Okay, let's try this. It's just after 8:30 on a Sunday morning. My name is Ron, and this is Sunday Morning Live with Ron. We do this every Sunday morning at 8:30 here in my backyard. You can see I've moved things around a little bit. Our topic today is color. Nice red shirt, huh? For our photography tips. But let me tell you a little bit. First off, welcome. Okay. If you're not right here when I start, welcome anyway. You'll see it all eventually. It's going to be here. What can I say? But I've got a little frog in my throat there. Took a little sip of coffee there just before I started, and thinking it would help wet my whistle, and it did. It cut something loose in there. So what do we do? As I said, it's Sunday Morning Live with Ron. First, I want to say Happy Father's Day to my dad and all of the dads out there. You're special. We appreciate you. We probably will never know what it took for you to raise us, and we appreciate it. At least I do. Don't know that I can talk for everybody in the world, but I appreciate my dad, and I appreciate all the dads out there that do the dad thing. It's an incredible job. So, Sunday Morning Live with Ron. Not every Sunday is Father's Day. I'm not sure if you know that or if your father has been lying to you all of these years. Not every Sunday is Father's Day. This Sunday is, but every Sunday, I come out here in my backyard and talk to myself about one. I am going to show you the new pictures that are going to be added to my site this week. Definitely, it will be tomorrow morning, not today, but they are coming. I think the trucker liked that. The new pictures are coming, and then we're going to go over how you can make your photography better. Okay. Right now, we are doing a section on composition, and today's topic, as I already mentioned, is using color in composition. Okay. So we will go through that. Show you some lessons, some tips on how to use color to make your pictures better. If you're interested in other tips, if you look on Facebook, and eventually when I get caught up on YouTube, you will see that we have done already the exposure triangle. Okay, I just like doing this. Okay. So that's the aperture, how big your opening is, how much light it lets in. Your shutter speed, how fast your shutter opens and closes. Okay. And your sensitivity, or what's called the ISO. Okay. Those are the three parts of the exposure triangle. And then we've gone into composition. We talked about, before we did any of that, we talked about getting better pictures by holding your camera steady. And I have to share a story with you on that. I went out last night and I shot some sunset pictures. Went to a wilderness area near my house, relatively near my house, and went to a wilderness area and took some sunset pictures. And I want to share with you here. Let's go up here. I should have opened this first, but just talking about doing holding your camera steady. When I took my sunset pictures, I took some fairly long exposures, all right? And what I did not do is follow my own advice. I did have it on a tripod, but I did not use a delay or remote control on the tripod. And what happened was I have a whole lot of these pictures, as you can see, they are not at all in focus. They are blurry. And that's because when I clicked on the shutter, clicked on the camera to release the shutter, when I had it set to expose for a second or more, half a second or more, they became quite blurry because I shook the camera just by touching it and releasing the shutter. So getting my hand on and off shook the camera for that long exposure. So remember, tip number one, always keep your camera steady. That was very disappointing this morning, except to realize that now I get to go back. I have an excuse to go back to the same spot and take some more sunset pictures. But I did get some nice ones, and those will be coming up, not this show, but in later shows. The good ones will actually show up on my website because they're pretty spectacular. I also got some bird pictures. It's a wetlands, and I got some sort of white crane type thing. I'm going to have to go on the internet and identify it so that I will know what it is, because well, I am very, very good at identifying birds. I can tell you if something is a bird probably better than 95% of the time. Exactly what bird it is, I can't always tell. So I'll do some research before I post those bird pictures. But people seem to like bird pictures, so I thought I'd go and take some. And I got a couple good ones. So you'll see those coming up. And then the third thing that I do here on Sunday mornings is, one sec. The third thing that I do is I will take my handy Sony a6000 camera and I will show you some examples of using color in composition to really make things pop, make your compositions better using color. So that's what we're going to do today. All right. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce this week's new pictures. Oh, someone has joined me here on Facebook, it looks like. Thank you for joining. I got a thumbs up. Oh, but then they gave me a thumbs up and then they left. Oh, well, hopefully they'll come back and enjoy some pictures with the rest of us. So this is picture number one. It's not number one. It's just Reeds on Reeds is the name of this picture. Okay. It was actually taken in a drainage ditch in Vacaville last fall sometime. I forget exactly when. But there was some standing water in one part of the drainage ditch where these reeds were growing. And I really liked the way that the reflection shows in the water. So I have a black and white version of this that I've got in my gallery as well, a slightly different crop. But it's also very nice with the greens. So again, that one is Reeds on Reeds. This one, as you may have guessed, Rockaway Beach in Pacifica, because that's a place I like to go. It's a fun place to be. This one is called Beach Party. Just a bunch of gull-type birds. Again, I can clearly identify that they are birds, but I don't know what types of birds they are. But they're definitely related to seagulls, just from the colors and markings. They're having a party there on the beach. I think they're actually looking for little fishies to wash up on the shore, but we'll call it a party. You can have an eating party. It's like a picnic, right? They're having a bird picnic on the beach. Beach party. I don't know. Okay. This next one is taken in San Jose at the Lunar New Year celebration in San Jose in February. This young lady is playing a very traditional, I believe it was Chinese instrument. She's a music major somewhere, I think San Jose State University. She's a music major. It was interesting to me watching her because in my experience, this is opinion. In my experience, many classical musicians, particularly good ones, can be very full of themselves and take a very haughty attitude. And this young lady certainly projected that as she came out on stage and got all set up and got the mics just right and got everything just perfect. And I was like, oh, she's going to have that smug smile on her face through this whole thing. And then she started to play. Oh, Nick Tating Lens joined us briefly on Instagram. But then she started to play. And she was absolutely transported. And I was absolutely transported. And that's why this one is called To Play is to Live. She lost all sense that anyone else was there except her, that instrument, and the music that she could make coming out of it. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to see. To play is to live. This one is from Reno, Nevada. It is, I'm not even sure which street it is, but it's a street that I could see from my hotel room window. This was taken near dawn, about 6:30. It was February. It's about 6:25 in the morning. And the street was all lit up and quite empty. You can see there aren't very many cars on there. And just seems to lead off into nowhere. We talked last week in our composition piece about converging lines and how they can draw your eye forward. And this definitely does that. So this one is called Main Drag at Dawn. Okay, again, in Reno, Nevada, Father's Day weekend. Past year. And this one was actually taken less than a block from my house. This is called Springtime Stroll. And it just shows all the leaves coming out on the trees and the flowers. Again, using the idea of a leading line to bring your eye forward, and then at the last minute, that little S curve there to to make it a little more interesting. The converging lines here and here. All right. We're going to talk about color today. So there's a little pop of contrast color over here, away from the greens. Okay. So it's just an interesting composition. It's called Springtime Stroll. Okay. So those are the 5 new pieces. Just to recap: Springtime Stroll, Main Drag at Dawn, To Play is to Live, Beach Party, and Reads on Reads. Okay. So those, as I said, those will be up on the website sometime tomorrow morning early. It'll be really early because I've got a meeting that starts for me at 7 a.m. So I want to get these up and done before then. In case you don't know, in case you're very confused, once again, I am Ron Olcott. I am a photographer. I have this website. It's really cool. Trust me. Really cool. It's called ronolcottphotography.com. Go there, see what I have done. Hopefully you will like it. If you don't, hey, that's up to you. I can't make anybody like anything. I don't like everything that everybody else does. So everybody has their own tastes, and that's the way the world works. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. Okay. But just remember, I'm Ron Olcott. That's the important piece that you need to learn today. Okay. This is going to change your life. Me, Ron. All right. So I promised you I was going to show you some pictures, which I already did. Okay. Number 2, I promised I was going to share some photography tips. Right. So today's photography tips come to us courtesy of Photography Pro. And Photography Pro is actually a marvelous website. I have purchased 2 of their training courses, and actually it is the outline of their digital camera mastery course that I'm using for the structure of the tips that I'm giving you. And they have a blog post. This is free. This is not part of the course. This is on their blog. As always, disclaimer, I don't own any of this material. It comes from Photography Pro and their blog post, Color in Photography. Okay. And the full title of this article is 6 Pro Tips for Effective Use of Color in Photography. So what does color do for us? Color is going to make our compositions more interesting if we find the right combinations of color. So here are some tips on good ways to use color. Lucy was here briefly on Instagram. Thank you, Lucy, for joining in. We still just have one nice thumbs up there on Facebook. I don't know where the Facebook people are this morning. They must be cooking breakfast maybe for Dad, or maybe they are Dad and they're sleeping in. Okay, color. The first thing to understand about color, well, there's 2 things to understand. The first thing to understand about me teaching color is that I am colorblind. All right. So I have to tell you that when I look at this color wheel, okay, I do see that there are about 12 colors there. Okay. But I don't know that I would have labeled the colors the way that they have labeled them there. So I can see differences in color, but I'm not very good at identifying subtle changes in color. And if you get past 12, if you go into the 16 color and the 24-bit color, I really do not always see the differences in color. So I have a difficult time with composition using color. And you will find that I stick with the basics, which for photography, because in photography, you're painting with light, okay? And the color wheel for light is different than the color wheel for pigment. So if you're a painter, you would have a different color wheel, okay? But the color wheel for light, the primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. So that means that the secondary or complementary colors are purple, orange, and green. Okay. Now you notice that that doesn't correspond to anything that you are ever allowed to control on your computer. Computers work with CMY, okay, cyan, magenta, and yellow. Okay. Well, cyan is somewhere in a blue-green. Okay. Magenta is somewhere between red and purple, and then yellow. All right. So that's screen projection. Okay. Or they do RGB, red, green, blue. And you see that on the color wheel, that's just a strange combination. All right. But when you're composing, think of the color wheel with red, yellow, yellow and blue. Okay. And then the complements. So the complement of yellow is purple. The complement of red is green. And the complement of blue is orange. What does that mean? That means that combination is going to give you the highest possible contrast in the feel of the colors. Okay. So let's take a look. Okay. Here we are showing red-green contrast. All of that red really makes this green sort of pop. Okay. And in fact, the red wouldn't feel as red. Okay. If I just pull up, so all you see is the red, that's not really interesting. Okay. But we add just a little touch of green into the composition, then you have an interesting picture. Okay. If you do pop in, do say hi, wave. I am trying to watch the comments a little bit. Okay. Now, the complement of blue is orange. And conversely, the complement of orange is blue. Okay. See, there's sort of a blue tint to this gray in the back. Okay. And there's blue on her boots here. Okay. And that really makes the orange of her blouse pop out. Okay. And the orangish tint on her lips. Okay. So using complementary colors will get you high contrast, okay, and pull your attention to one specific place. And again, yellow and purple are complementary colors. Using that high contrast, all of the rest of this busyness kind of fades away. Okay, what you see, what your eye is pulled towards, is the yellow-purple contrast. Okay. The next tip is to find a pop of color. Now, a pop of color is just a bright splash that stands out against the other colors in the scene, okay? Here, we've got bright pink with this pop of white in the middle, okay? Just stands out. Okay? Here, the yellow raincoat of this person sitting down really pops out against this much more neutral background, okay? It catches your eye. It says it's a little boy in the sand dunes. Here, your eye immediately goes to this pop of color. And I have to apologize. On Instagram, you're not seeing this, but it's there. Trust me, it's there, okay? The next tip, tip number 3, use color to create an abstract. Okay? Here, we've got this pink and this orange. Okay? Now, they are very contrasting. They're not complementary, they are contrasting. Okay? And I really am not sure. I would say from the shape of that perhaps it's a bit of a door jamb, but I'm just guessing as to what we're looking at here. All right. Here, I'm going to guess maybe rope. Okay. But the contrast between the bright green and the dark shadows makes this abstract. Okay. Just from the contrasting colors. Okay. And I got to tell you, I still have not figured out what the heck this one is. It's just a mystery to me. Okay. Using very saturated colors, as it mentions down here at the bottom. It says, in some plastic buckets. I still don't know what I'm looking at. It doesn't tell me anything. All right. So, tip number 4, use bright and colorful backgrounds. Okay. And you can do that in 2 ways. You can either put a very neutral figure in front of a colorful background, okay, to sort of stop your eye, break up that colorful background with a very neutral color or a complementary color. Okay, now this is, has a lot of reds and oranges and blues and a lot of different colors. Okay, but she's sort of in a reddish section. Okay, so if she was wearing a green dress that was complementary to that, that would really pop out. Okay. Or you can use a colorful background just as in a solid color. This is a dandelion head held up against the sky. Okay. So don't forget, anytime you need a blue, you can almost always get blue out of a piece of sky. So if you can get low enough and shoot up to the sky, you'll get some nice contrasting colors to the blues. Okay. The next tip is to understand dominant and receding. Okay. The warm colors, okay, red, yellow, orange, okay, that half of the color wheel. So if I jump back up here to the color wheel and talk about orange, about warm versus cool, okay. If we draw a line right here between, right across the axis right there, okay, all of these colors up here would be considered warm colors. Okay. All of these colors down here would be considered cool colors. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about emotional impact. But when they're talking here about dominant and receding, the warm colors tend to dominate. So when you look at this, the first thing you're going to see is that very warm colored flower with the reds and the roses and the pink colors in there, okay? It's only a second or two later that you actually notice that there's a very cool colored watering can behind it, okay? Now, some of that is the framing of the composition and everything else, but what makes it work is that warm color really catches your eye, okay? Here's another example. In this picture, the only warm color is this lady with her warm colored hair, her brightly colored, warm colored top, okay? The rest of the scene is fairly cool, okay? Has sort of a bluish tint to most of it, okay? So even though this is the nearest object to us, right here is the tongue of this little wagon thing that she's leaning on, okay? That's not where our attention goes. Our attention goes to her because the warm color feels like it comes closer to us, okay? Because it's a dominant color. Okay? Tip number 6, using color in the rule of thirds. Okay? So here they make bands of color or blocks of color. They use that in rule of thirds. But in fact, if there are patterns that you find using blocks of colors, you can use that to break the rule of thirds because they can be interesting in and of themselves. And they don't always have to be rectangular. These are kind of rectangular shape. But you see here, we've got a bit of a cone. Here we've got a bit of a cone, triangular shape going on. Okay, so these colors create their own zones. Okay? And therefore, this doesn't have to be right on the rule of thirds line because it is a contrasting color to the pieces around it. The same with this. Okay? You can get attention with color just as you do with the rule of thirds. Okay? Here, they're either going to coffee mugs or back to those buckets. Okay? But see how we're not really using the rule of thirds here. That's kind of on a third. That's kind of on a third. Okay? But they're dividing the thirds up by colors. Okay? So by using different colors in the different zones, that really enforces the idea of the rule of thirds on this one. Okay? And then a piece that they don't talk about in this article, but they do talk about in the course that I'm taking on this, is that it is colors have emotional contexts for us. Okay. And I'm going to demonstrate that with one of my pictures. Okay. So I'm going to jump over here. You'll see some tools along the side if you're on Facebook. Ignore those. That's not the point today. Okay. That's just the tool that I can show a gallery of pictures in. So here we have a picture, happens to be of me, because all photographers like to have their own picture. But it's a picture of me. It was taken while I was in Europe last fall. I had a tour guide take a picture of me. I'm up on top of a hill, and out behind me is the city of Prague in the evening. Really quite a lovely effect. Okay, but here it is with kind of a neutral background. Okay, I look comfortable enough. Okay, background's a little bit interesting. Okay, using that busy color background. Okay. You don't really notice the shirt, just kind of dark fades away. Okay. But let's look at what happens if I change the color just in this surrounding area, how that image inside changes. Now, these are all duplicates of exactly the same setup. All I did was change the background surrounding it. Okay. So here, I matched the blue color of my shirt. Okay. So here I have blue. What does that do? Well, the complement of blue is yellow. So it makes these yellow pieces behind stand out a little bit more. You also notice that the shirt is blue more. Okay. And the picture feels a little bit cooler because blue is a cool color. Okay. If you just had this picture and you looked at it and said, what kind of day was this? You might say, well, it was fall. It was a little bit cool. Okay. Let's take the same thing and see what happens if we switch and we pick up the yellow. I think I picked it up from this building right here. Okay. So, wait, I'm not pointing to the right parts. Okay. So I picked it up, the yellow, from a part of this building right here. Well, now, because that's a complement, we don't really see the yellow buildings as much, as it really makes the color of my shirt pop out. And because yellow is a warm color, okay, this feels like a little bit warmer day. Okay. It might have been a little bit earlier in the day than that blue. All right. See how the emotion changes. And then as I go to an even warmer color, this is the red from one of these roofs back here. I think this one. Okay. Now you get a sense, I look almost ruddy now. Just because the color surrounding me, reinforces the redness in my face. And you realize that it was actually quite warm. It was in the mid 80s that day. All right. So again, let's look just very quickly, if I can find my mouse again, just look very quickly again at how this one picture changes emotionally as we go from a neutral background to a blue background to a yellowish background to a reddish background. Okay? They all feel a little bit different. And hold your camera steady. Okay? So that is what they are teaching us here in this article. And once again, the article is from Photography Pro. It's a blog post called Color in Photography. The full title is 6 pro tips for effective use of color in photography from 2018, written by Laura Bass. Okay. I just like that picture. Okay. And here we have the orange against the yellow against the green. Okay. Red, green. Complements. Okay. This makes that hair that much redder. Just a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Okay. So there we are. That's our lesson for the day. So we've done 2 of the 3 things that I promised you. 1, we showed you the pictures. Okay. Just to recap there, we've got Reads on Reads. We've got Beach Party. We've got To Play is to Live. Main Drag at Dawn. Let me get that out of the way. And Springtime Stroll. Okay, so those 5 pictures will be up on the website sometime early tomorrow morning. Second thing is, we did a lesson about using color in your composition and how it can improve the interest in your photography. And once again, color is not something that depends on having an expensive, fancy camera. Okay, you can use color in your composition. All the composition techniques you can do even if you have just a simple pinhole camera. Okay, if you have a disposable film camera, I don't even know if they make disposable film cameras anymore. I used to get those all the time. So no matter what type of camera, your phone, okay, the simplest camera that you can buy for $20 at the drugstore, okay, all the way up to a $3,000 digital SLR camera, okay. You can use all of these same composition techniques. Then, the other thing you can do, okay, we talked about color. Sorry, lost my spot. We said Happy Father's Day. Don't forget, Father's Day is today. So, one day a year, just be nice to Dad. All right? Be nice to Dad. If you want to get him a picture, that would be nice. Now I have a vested interest in that. I would really suggest that you get him a picture from my website. If you don't want to get him a picture from your website, but you have a picture that you want to get him and get it all blown up and framed and all nice and neat, and you can also go to my website. Okay. And just a reminder that my website is ronalcottphotography.com. Okay. And there is a feature there up in the main menu that will allow you to upload your own photographs. Blow them up, get them printed on the same quality fine art papers, the same museum quality inks that I use in my own fine art prints. And you can do that there. And you'll get, I know that there are lots of places that do this, okay? I mean, Walmart offers it, lots of places offer it, okay? But they don't use the same high quality, archival quality materials. So you run the risk of those fading over time, okay? With the archival quality inks and the museum quality papers that we use on our site, you do not run that risk. They will not fade. All right. So it probably will cost a little bit more than Walmart, but you'll have it forever. So that's an idea. Okay. And obviously, if you order it today, it's not going to get there today. Okay? But if you go ahead and order it today, we will get it. We will get you a certificate that you can show to Dad and say, "Hey, Dad, you're getting this." All right. So, so there's that. Next Friday is my last weekly Friday happy hour virtual home art gallery show, which is very much like this, except for 2 important things. 1, I'm inside instead of outside. And 2, rather than showing you digital images, of upcoming prints, I show you actual prints that I have in stock. I offer you huge discounts on these prints. And I have a giveaway. I have a discount for the day. There's all kinds of fun. We have beverages. I get dressed up, even more dressed up than this. This is more dressed up than I normally would be on a Sunday if it weren't for all you important people out there. But I do all that just for you so that you can see what the art looks like, actually, how you would receive it, the actual matted prints that you can buy off of my site. Or you can buy them directly from me as limited editions. And whatever. Sorry. Neighbors made a noise. It confused me. I get staring at myself sometimes at the pictures. So it's very mesmerizing, especially because there's a lag in between some of the pictures. So I start counting seconds in the lag rather than actually doing my show. But I promised a third thing, right? I promised you I would demonstrate with my own camera right here, live on Facebook and Instagram, although I'm not sure it's live on Instagram anymore, that I would demonstrate exactly. Karen. Karen has joined on Instagram. I don't know if you can see anything, Karen, but welcome. But because I think I'm past my 30 minutes for my live, that's why you may not see anything, Karen. But because I don't on my monitor, but I do see that Karen came in. Be that as it may, I promised I would demonstrate with my own camera some of these color techniques that we talked about today. The first demonstration is just using my webcam. Is I got this red shirt because red is a complement of green. Okay? And I knew I was going to set up against this green background today. And this really makes my shirt pop, which may or may not be a good thing, but that is what it did. Now, I'm going to try to remember to shout because I still have not figured out how to make my remote microphone work with this new software yet. But I'm going to jump over to my camera. I will get up out of my chair, which should be an interesting endeavor in itself because I get myself locked down in here pretty deeply. So that will take me a second. And then I will show you and demonstrate some places where using those ideas of the color wheel, a pop of color, a colorful background, and using the emotion of color and using blocks of color, how we can incorporate those into compositions. All right. And for those of you keeping score, obviously, there is Mr. Bunny. Okay. All right. So before I go to my still life demonstrations, I want to demonstrate here a little bit with Mr. Oleander, our dear friend, Mr. Oleander. I'm going to change my perspective a little bit and get it up here. Okay. Now, here I am. I'm going to zoom in. Now, right now, I am focused tightly on that oleander. Let's see if we can get. And you can see how the pink flowers, being pink, being close to red, provide a little bit of a pop of color against that green. Okay? But let's see what happens if we move closer. I put him kind of on a third spot. You see that spot of color, that pop of color is enough to draw your eye right onto that flower. Okay? Let's look at some more instances of pop of color. Now we're going to change perspective again. And here, okay. Hang on, we've got to really adjust this a little bit. And this lens, this is quite zoomy enough, but you can see, if I get that one little flower there onto a third one, that by providing that little pop of red, remember we talked about dominant versus receding colors? The red, pink of the flower makes that stand out, even though there's a lot more of the green of the grass. So the green grass, being a cool color, doesn't draw your eye as much as that pop of the oleander flower on the ground. The pink flower draws your eye deeper. All right. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring this back around here. I'm going to move Mr. Bunny off of the table, and we're going to set up our table here as a little still life gallery. 1 second while I move things around. All right. So this would qualify as a colorful background. All right. So we want to use that colorful background to create an interesting image. Let's see what we can put in here that would make an interesting image. Okay. So by getting the green in next to that red area, that green really stands out from the background. And because it's a plain color against that very busy background, I like that picture. I'm going to take that picture. Okay. Because the green stands out against a very busy background. We can see it quite clearly. Okay. Let's see what else we can do. I attacked Mr. Oleander. And there's oleander flower. Completely different color. But it also makes a very interesting contrast against that colorful background. Let's see how using different colors of backgrounds would affect that shot. Okay. So if I swap out my colorful background for a plain white background, that's gonna read as blue because the other side is very blue. All right. Okay. So there we have a less colorful background. Move him just a little bit. And again, an interesting shot, but very different than the other one. We'll take that one. And again, the oleander flowers. Right? Then, what if we go to this very blue background? Okay. Don't mind all the lint on here. It means nothing. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Okay. The blue and the green are not complementary colors. Okay. So that kind of looks weird. Okay. Take that shot. And now we put the oleander flowers against the blue. See how emotionally that really is a very different feel than when we had it against the plain background and when we had it against the very colorful background. Okay? And I promised you early on, I also would show you that you always have a very nice blue background available to you. Right? We're going to go right up here to this tree against the blue sky. But you notice that the tree being green, the sky being blue, we got an interesting effect. But it's going to actually pick up on more of the reds in there because of the contrast between reds and blues. So let's get over here. Still shooting? We're still shooting. Alrighty. And do this. Now we've got red, green, and blue. Alright. So there's a nice blue background for my oleander flowers. Okay? So that shows you a little bit about how you use color to take better pictures. We showed you the pictures. We wished you happy Father's Day. We talked to you about using color. We showed you how to use color using real world examples. We are out of time. So long. You know what? You be good to yourself. You be kind to other people. And you become the person that you would like to meet.